Now, I'm not going to review the entire James Bond franchise here, just the Daniel Craig movies, okay? So, Casino Royale 2006. Martin Campbell kick-started the Bond franchise back in 1995 when he directed Pierce Brosnan's first Bond film, Goldeneye. Here he introduces the new Bond, Daniel Craig from Layer Cake, a craggy-faced bit of beefcake, the new Timothy Dalton to Brosnan's new Roger Moore. This is totally different from the other Bond films. The familiar trimmings are gone, although the gunshot at the start and Judi Dench's M are both retained. There are no girls in the title sequence, just some CGI men. The gadgets are gone too. Instead, this is like a big budget version of 24, the TV show with Kiefer Sutherland. Bond is now a one-man demolition squad, racing against time to defeat terrorists. The plot is taken from the original book by Ian Fleming. Bond must outsmart a banker who finances terrorists. He is partnered with Vesper Lynd, played by Eva Green, and they go undercover to a high-stakes poker tournament in the Casino Royale. Felix Leiter, played by Jeffrey Wright from Mockingjay, is one of the other players. Quantum of Solace from 2008. This follows directly after the end of the previous film, Casino Royale. Bond is still out for revenge, and he does not care who gets hurt in the process. He tries to get info out of Mr. White, but this is harder than he expects. The trail leads to the gorgeous Olga Kurlenkov. And her boyfriend, Mr. Green, a somewhat bland fellow who at worst looks a bit reminiscent of Peter Lorre. Do not let the Reservoir Dogs style names fool you. He is not a physically threatening opponent for Bond. CIA man Felix Leiter, played by Jeffrey Wright again, pops up, now a big man in the agency's South American section. Gemma Arterton is Bond's contact, a cross between a Centrinians girl, the film she is most famous for, and the Rowan Atkinson character from Never Say Never Again. Skyfall from 2012. Javier Bardem, famous as the Terminator-style villain in No Country for Old Men, wages a high-tech war against M, played by Judi Dench. However, Harry Voldemort, aka Ralph Fiennes from Harry Potter series, wants her to retire. Can Bond save the day? This completes the Daniel Craig reboot, introducing Q and other characters. The actor who plays Q also played the protagonist in Perfume, the Story of a Murderer. This should be a knockout, if only he was not made up to look like Moss from the IT crowd. Bond also has a female sidekick played by Naomi Harris. Director Sam Mendes does a wonderful job with the cinematography. Okay, in real life, actually, the cinematographer was Roger Deakins, and Mendes is not the great director that I believed at the time of writing this. The shot composition is masterful. Again, that's Deakins should get the credit, not Mendes. The producers did a great job of recruiting an Oscar-nominated director. Yeah, I'm going to have to amend that review. Spectre 2015. MI6 is still recovering from the aftermath of Skyfall. Bond follows M's last wish to stalk and murder a suspected terrorist in the hope that other terrorists will turn up to the funeral. MI6 and MI5 are being merged into a single entity, favouring electronic intelligence rather than human resources. The new M, played by Ralph Fiennes, defends Bond's integrity, stating he only kills after making a value judgment. This is totally at odds with all on-screen evidence in this film, starting with the intro scene where he endangers half the civilian population of Mexico City in order to kill a complete stranger without a warrant or official death sentence of any kind. However, this is still preferable to the idea of all electronic intelligence being centralized like in Captain America Winter Soldier. Look at how Red China used Google Info to oppress free speech activists. Bond is suspended from duty like in License to Kill. He may be following a pattern set in the previous film, but this is nothing compared to the Mission Impossible franchise where Ethan Hunt has been suspended in 4 out of 5 films. Bond meets the grieving widow, Monica Bellucci, and uncovers a secret society run by Christoph Waltz from Green Hornet. The villain hires Hinks, played by Dave Bautista from Guardians of the Galaxy, to tie up some loose ends, including Bond himself. The cat and mouse game proceeds predictably. The problem with this film is there is no suspense or excitement. At no point do we actually believe that Bond is in any jeopardy. He walks through every situation without breaking stride. There is never a scene where we ask ourselves, how will he possibly get out of this one? No Time to Die, 2021. In the aftermath of Spectre, Bond is retired and takes his love interest to go on a romantic vacation. He tells her, "We have all the time in the world, so we know it is not going to end well." Unfortunately, Blofeld's henchmen are still after Bond, so he has to make a decision. This sets up the core of the movie's story. 5 years later, Bond is pulled out of retirement. Rather than working for MI6, he is now a freelancer for the CIA. Not only has Bond been replaced as 007 by Nomi, played by Lashana Lynch, but Felix Leiter, still Jeffrey Wright, is replaced as a field agent by Paloma, played by Ana de Armas. These Bond girls acquit themselves well in the action scenes, but this is all they do. In the classic Bond movies, the hero usually had 3 love interests. However, neither of the new Bond girls is attracted to him. Nomi is a black woman with a lesbian haircut, clearly intended to attract a non-traditional audience, while Paloma's lines seem to have been written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. The classic Bond films are action movies about hedonism and conspicuous consumption. This is more like Tempocalypse, the fictional chit-lit story in British sitcom Black Books about a 29-year-old woman's attempts to find a boyfriend with a subplot about preventing nuclear war with Red China. Yes, this time the save the world bit really is a subplot. Just as Felix and Bond are retired from the field, so does Blofeld get replaced by cut-price Raoul Silva, a former secret operator driven by revenge against those who betrayed and disfigured him with poison. The movie contains many such references to previous Bond movies. Some of them are clearly intentional, because this is the 60th anniversary movie. However, the tropes themselves are so old they have become generic in the genre. It is hard to discern between deliberate homage and inadvertent cliché. This is not the best of Daniel Craig's Bond movies, but is not his worst either. While the best Star Trek movies are the even-numbered ones, Craig's best Bond movies are the odd-numbered ones. As number 5, this provides a fitting finale to the series.